Backstory. This happened in the 1990s. My parents own a 40-acre farm in the middle of nowhere. After 5 years, the trailer next door that was on 2.5 acres went up for sale. The dogs were put in a pen to go outside when the new neighbors were moving in. The husband looked like he killed his own mother and enjoyed it, but the dogs didn't even give off a whimper. The wife, when she came up the driveway, the dogs went nuts and wanted to tear into her. Our dogs are not violent, but we came later to understand why. My mom, being the nice southern lady that she is, went next door to introduce herself and wanted to know more about the new neighbor. It all seemed well until the wife asked who owned the field behind her house. Mom bashfully replied that it was hers and my dad's. After that, the conversation got awkward and Mom excused herself. A couple of weeks later, Mom and Dad were coming home from shopping and found 3 kids no older than 7 years old all over our farm equipment. Mom and Dad chased them off to the neighbor's house. My mom went over and asked why those kids were over there. They found out it was the neighbor's grandchildren. When Mom told her that they needed to stay away from the farm equipment because one of them will get hurt, she said, "I don't care if one of them gets killed. I want that field one way or the other," pointing to the field behind her house. Mom and Dad immediately called the sheriff and an attorney to find out what they could do to protect themselves. They both said that they needed no trespassing sign every 100 feet if possible, especially where the equipment is normally stored and around the property. When Mom and Dad did that, the signs around the property were disappearing. One time, as Mom was coming down from a tree to put it high up where they had to come on the property to get it down, a gun blast hit the sign above her head, and off in the distance was the wife yelling smugly, "Oops, I guess my gun went off accidentally." Things cooled down only when my brother came home on weekends from college to watch the house. Plus, my parents made their schedule more random during the week, so the neighbors didn't know if anyone was there or not. However, they were still causing problems, like small things disappearing from our yard and them saying that it must be some druggie looking to steal anything for drugs. It was so bad at one point in time that Mom and Dad asked if they could buy their property. The property was worth $50,000 at the time. My parents offered $60,000. The wife said, "Sure, you can buy my property at $250,000. Take it or leave it." Even my parents' property at the time was not worth that much, so they left it. However, it took a turn for the better 2 years after the offer. The husband wanted a divorce from his wife. This was a grand total of 4 years of dealing with her. Side note, the husband never met my parents until he moved out a week prior. He said his wife told him that my parents, especially my mom, were crazy, and for his safety, needed to stay away from them after my mom's initial visit. When he finally found out that his wife was the one that was crazy, he left her. About a month after that, the husband came back talking about how the divorce was going and wanted to know if they were interested in the property. They told him about the offer 2 years ago, and he said he never heard about it, nor about his grandchildren coming over hoping that one of them would get hurt, but it didn't surprise him. When we told him how much we offered, he said the divorce attorney said that the sale of the house will be split 50-50. I don't care if you offer a nickel just to spite her. A week after that, the wife came to my parents' house asking if they were willing to buy at the $60,000 they offered initially. Mom and Dad said that they will buy it at what the appraiser will say it is worth. Because of the depreciation of the trailer and because the wife didn't take care of the trailer, it was appraised at $40,000. Mom was ready to be spiteful and offer $30,000, but Dad disagreed and said that will be a good restart for a guy that had to live through this for all those years. Second story. I can't believe I'm writing this, but here we go. We got a 2-for-1 special on malicious compliance today. I work at a print hub, working the printers and adjusting files and such. I put in a lot of work to deliver a perfect product despite the issues that plague the shop, and always ensure that everything I produce is quality checked. This isn't due to me putting pride in my work, however, but rather my boss nitpicks nearly everything. If something is off-center by a millimeter, it's redone. If there's a small scratch on one poster in a pack of 5, the whole order is redone. Now, don't get me wrong, the boss is a good person, not a Karen or anything, but sometimes we have to redo orders several times to ensure it is done to her expectations, which is absolutely fair. She is the boss, and it's not too often she does this. Anyways, on to the incident. I just learned that I am supposed to run a one-shot Dungeons & Dragons sessions this weekend. Short notice, have maps, and everything to set up. It's a long story why this is last minute, but doesn't pertain to the story. As a result, I quickly picked out one of the dungeons I ran in my regular Dungeons & Dragons group. A galleon ship trapped in time, where the players need to manipulate the environment to have the crew open or close doors and turn it into a one-shot adventure. I call it the time between the seconds. Since it was last minute, I didn't really have time to optimize maps, so I just sent the order through my job's online submission with the intention to just print out a pixelated mess just for the sake of having visuals. It's the way I play Dungeon Master. I like having visuals for my players to help them envision the area. Today, when I came in, I found the order I submitted and completed it quickly. Admittedly, it was a bit of a mess, and it didn't help that our color machine started leaking toner again. Blue streaks on the paper and everything. Whatever, I'm fine with it. An hour later, while I was working with posters, my manager, let's call her Kay, came into the room. She started. Kay, holding up my order, said, "What is this?" I replied, "Oh, that's my job. How can you say this is good? It's pixelated and the machine dumped toner on it." Kay, it's okay. It's not okay. You have to contact the customer and figure out how they want to proceed. Trust me, I'm sure the customer won't mind. Look at the customer name. It doesn't matter. I want you to see how they want to proceed. Think about what they want. Yes, Kay. Kay dropped the order in front of me and left the room. I considered my options for a moment and looked towards my dwindling workload. Screw it. Malicious compliance number 1. I finished my assigned work and got to work on the maps. As I said, I didn't properly optimize them or anything, so I started working through the 5 11x17 maps I had, smoothing out the pixels. It took about an hour to get everything set up. Normally, I work on a program other than Photoshop for my maps. After that, I went through the character sheets, filling in any of the blanks I left in, such as personality, bonds, and gold. About 15 minutes. Then, what about any random gear they may have? A big part of this one-shot is their carrying weight, so I calculate those totals up. Another 20 minutes. About an hour and a half later, I have the files up to the customer standards, which is mine, and I print them out again. But the toner dumping on the color printer is still an issue, so even though the files looked a lot better, there were still blue streaks in the paper. So when Kay saw it, she was holding the completed order. "Cole, what are you doing? You know the color machine is down." "I know, but I can't wait for the machine to be fixed." Kay considers for a moment before speaking. "Call the customer and explain the issue. See if they will accept it half off." "That isn't needed, cause just do it." "Stay here, please." Malicious compliance number 2. I picked up the office phone, looked her dead in the eyes, and dialed the number on the order form. From my pocket, the Silver Samurai theme from Phoenix Wright series began to chime. I take my phone out of my pocket and answer, immediately saying, "Yes, I will take half off my order." Kay was speechless and just quietly walked out the door. To her credit, she did honor the half off she offered the customer, but perhaps next time she will actually let me finish what I'm trying to say instead of constantly cutting me off. Don't get me wrong, Kay is a good person, but today was a harsh day on everyone since our machines are having issues. The only one who was able to get anything done was me, since my printers, the wide format, and the drafting machines were working properly. I'm sure tomorrow we will have a laugh over the situation, as the machines are fixed now and stress levels have lowered. Edit. Okay, a lot of people, and I mean a lot, have been messaging me about not the story itself, but the one-shot. Okay guys, I am no Matt Mercer or anything, but I have a creative mind, so I'll share a little more. Essentially, the ship was involved in a massive catastrophe that affected large portions of my homebrew world, Palette. Magical nukes decimated regions in various ways, such as destroying all fauna, destroying and preventing any flora from blooming ever again, the withers, just outright explosions, and in one region's case, trapped in an endless time loop, doomed to repeat the same month over and over again. The ship was stuck in this time bubble at the time of Ultima, and as such, it too is stuck in an endless loop. The party won't be able to interact with basic things like doors and portholes because that would directly affect the time loop, but anything the party does can still affect the crew in general. Essentially, by interacting with things the crew is not interacting with, they can convince them the ship is haunted or similar circumstances, and get the crew to open the doors instead. The ultimate goal of the one-shot is to end the time loop. To do that, the players have to figure out they need to sink the ship so that it never gets to the region where the time loop happened in the first place. This will save the crew of the ship. Last story. This started when I first started a new school for kids, to me, with learning disabilities in the 8th grade. I'm autistic. I've accepted that and being a weirdo a while ago. It's just a part of me. I met this kid, Jay, and he was on the spectrum too. It didn't really take too long to figure out why few people genuinely liked him. He was weird in a bad kind of way. My mom didn't seem to see this, thinking I just needed to get used to him. However, I didn't have much to do with him until the 9th grade, when our parents figured out we lived close enough to each other to carpool. This is when the uncomfortableness amped up and made me want to cry. He would always sit close enough for our legs to touch. He'd try to hold my hand, and when it worked, he'd hold too tight. When he'd hug me, he'd always accidentally touch my butt or breasts. When I told my mom that I didn't like the way he hugged me or held my hand, she'd brush it off, saying that he was trying to tell me he liked me. This became part of the reason why I still don't tell her much. Jay transferred to a different school before 10th grade started, and I was relieved to not have to deal with him anymore. However, I did have to deal with him once that year. One day, I'd gotten called up to the office. I was genuinely confused. Then I saw Jay. He smiled, hugged me, and again tried to touch my breast. He said he'd missed me and wanted to see me. He also gave me 2 CDs unprovoked. He also asked me to be his girlfriend, of which I immediately said no. I tried to thank him for the CDs, and Mrs. B, the office manager, and an amazing person, must have realized how uncomfortable I was. She intervened and said I should go back to class. I told my friends what happened, all agreeing that it was weird, and tried to forget about it. I'd been able to up until about a month before prom in 11th grade. My mom and I were on the way home, I didn't have my license yet, when Mom mentioned Jay. She said she'd called Jay's mom and they agreed to have him be my prom date. I was taken aback. But I don't want to go with him. Please, one date doesn't make him your boyfriend. Don't go overreacting. He's a good guy. Y'all are going together. While I did agree with her on the one date thing, I didn't change the fact that I wanted nothing to do with him. What if he asked me to be his girlfriend again? I wanted to cry. Prom night came and I was badly dreading it. Jay would try to touch me whenever someone wasn't looking. I wanted to cry the entire time. About halfway through, he pulled me aside and asked me to be his girlfriend. I said no again. Not long after that, he got into an argument with my friend R's boyfriend, C. Jay said that he could take R away from C if he wanted to, and C was lucky he had his eyes on someone else. C, knowing Q and being a friend, said that if Jay didn't stop with me or R, he'd make sure Jay regretted it. It didn't escalate more than that because, for lack of a better term, Jay is kind of a coward who refuses to think he was. He had sort of a better-than-you attitude. I didn't see him again until I went to senior luncheon. At my school, those who have already graduated come to talk to those who are about to about experiences after graduation. I graduated the year prior to this particular luncheon. I don't even know why Jay was there. He'd left before he graduated. He was definitely there though. I sucked it in. I didn't want to freak out in front of everyone. I confided in a friend who was also there, Kay. She saw how upset I was over this and promised that if he asked me to be his girlfriend again, she'd pretend to be my girlfriend. Coward or not, Jay was persistent as hell. Letting go hadn't been much of an option for him. Luckily for me, he never asked that day, though he did try to touch my breast and butt again. I've not interacted with him since, and I'm grateful. I did see him at Walmart while getting a few things, and he didn't see me. I just hope he doesn't figure out where I work. The whole thing may start over again.